Howard Bentham. Online on 95.2 and on digital.
BBC Radio Oxford.
Thousands of people in the UK are living with hepatitis C or HIV, which they contracted after being given contaminated blood by the health service. This was in the 1970s and 1980s. Earlier this year, an inquiry found the saga to be the stuff of nightmares, and a further £25 million was promised by the government to support victims. MPs go into their summer recess today, but victims still don't have an answer about how this chunk of money is going to be spent, as MP for Hull North Diana Johnson pointed out in an urgent question in the Commons yesterday.
After Penrose on the 25th of March, the Prime Minister told this House it's vital we move as soon as possible to improve the way that payments are made to those infected. And he added this: if I'm Prime Minister in May, we will respond to the findings of this report as a matter of priority. And on the 3rd of June, the Prime Minister promised a full statement before the summer recess. At 2 p.m. last Friday, a written statement was laid in the other place. And in short, it seems to me it means no extra help for victims for at least 2 more years. And tabling it in the other place when the Commons was not sitting was very shabby indeed.
Health Minister Ben Gummer responded by saying no answer will not come until the next spending review, and that's in the autumn.
As previously announced, up to £25 million was allocated to support transition to a reform scheme. I can confirm that we do not intend to use this for the administrative costs that might be associated with reforming existing schemes. We expect to announce our plans for that money in light of consultation and once we have an understanding of how a new scheme might be structured. We intend to consult on proposals for a reform scheme later this year.
Earlier, I spoke to David Leadbetter. He's from Witney and has haemophilia and was infected with Hep C around 30 years ago.
I was born with haemophilia. And with haemophilia, your blood doesn't clot if you have an accident or anything. So that was the treatment I was on, as well as about 5,000 other haemophiliacs. And in the 70s and 80s, the treatment was infected with hepatitis and HIV.
You have spent basically the rest of your life trying to sort this out, along with other campaigners, and you expected an announcement on how this £25 million is going to be spent before the summer recess. You just heard the MPs batting it around again there. How do you feel that this decision is not going to be made until the end of the year?
I'm angry about it. I'm not surprised, because that's all we've ever had from David Cameron's government is wait and see. They just keep moving the goalpost each few months and another few months down the road until it gets into next year.
Joe Peaty is co-chair of the campaign group Tainted Blood and has been infected with hepatitis A, B and C along with HIV. Joe, welcome to the programme this morning.
Good morning, Howard.
I know you've got haemophilia and contaminated as a child. So, I mean, much like David, I mean, this just affects your whole life, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, life seemed an awful lot simpler. You know, haemophilia is not a great condition to have. It can be quite complex, as in my case. And if you get a bleed, they can be quite debilitating and painful. But on the whole, you know, you find amongst the haemophilia community very positive people, and we used to be able to cope with that. We'd have to rest when we had a bleed, and then we'd get back on with life. But these viruses completely complicated our whole outlook. They cause disintegration within families. 2-3 generations were lost in some cases, and it modified our whole progression. You know, undermined the ability to have families. It disrupted school, stopped us pursuing the careers that we would have done otherwise, and it cut life very, very short for many people. You know. For a lot of us, we were infected as children or teenagers, and we were lucky if we saw 2, 3, 4 years after infection. Many people died, and for many of us that are survivors, we're now living with significant consequences, ill health. It's
a tragic story, Joe. It really is. I mean, and this has been going on for so long now. I'll just read you a part of what the Department of Health spokesperson said to us in a statement. Reforming the payment system, because bear in mind you've been allocated this £25 million. Reforming the payment system is a priority, and we're absolutely determined to get this right for people involved and their families. Allocated £25 million to ease transition to a reform system of payments for affected individuals, and we remain committed to helping those who've been affected by this great tragedy. Do you believe them?
To be honest, we're put my hands up first and give them credit where it's due. We've had more engagement from the Conservative government and indeed the last coalition than we've had in the last 30 years. They've made lots of positive sounds about how they're going to sort this out, and this will be great if it actually all comes to fruition. Unfortunately, what we see is a continual delay, kind of dragging the heels, and some resistance. And you have to look at Parliament, both in the debates that occurred in January and in yesterday's urgent questions that Diana Johnson tabled. And there is a massive amount of parliamentary support to get this sorted out. We've seen the equitable life settlements, and people do not understand why they can settle something that was about savings, but they can't settle something that is about loss of life and injury. So I believe that the government will pursue this, and there's a good opportunity to resolve this. But what we feel is there's resistance from within the Department of Health, and by that I mean the civil servants as much as anything. So we've got this announcement that they're going to carry on a consultation, and this will happen in the autumn. That it's going to be linked with the autumn spending review. This puts us way back to the end of November. We also had an assurance yesterday that it would be resolved by the end of this calendar year. And to do that, I mean, they are going to have to move very, very quickly or start the process before the spending review if they are to meet their commitment of doing it within 8 weeks. And the autumn spending review, of course, being the end of November.
That's in November, isn't it? Joe, we wish you the best of luck with it, and we'll stay in touch. Many thanks for your time this morning. Joe Peaty from the campaign group Tainted Blood.